I can be very, very stupid sometimes. Now, what is it that would drive someone as patently egotistical as me to confess to being very, very stupid? Well, simply that I have a tendency to go on dalliances in my training. And specifically, I will stop doing what I know works, what has produced results for me reliably and in many ways predictably for years, to either do something patently stupid or try something that sounds good in theory but in practice is poorly suited to someone who trains naturally. So I've got a couple examples to give you of me doing this. The first was when I was working particularly demanding rota of shifts. Now, what I did was I bought this guy's training program. It was a really good training program. It was like $10, $7.99, whatever the exchange rate was back then. PDF of a blogger who I used to read regularly. He no longer writes on his blog. I believe he's on Instagram. I'm not sure, I've not looked for a long time. He was on Instagram the last time I looked, but that was probably 4 or 5 years ago now. Anyway, I bought his program and it made a lot of sense. It was a powerlifting inspired program. I was very keen to get my squat, bench, deadlift and overhead press out of a bit of a rut, and on paper it was the perfect solution to the problems that I was having in that regard. But as I said, I was working a perilous shift pattern, which, if you've never worked shifts, you won't understand quite how bad it is. But if I was to say, you essentially feel jet lagged 24/7, like you've done a long haul flight 24/7, until, well, it's not fully 24/7, that's while you're on your shifts, and then for your first couple of days off you still feel that way, and then kind of your last day off you feel a bit better, but then you're back into the blender again. It's obviously a powerlifting inspired program with very finely tuned percentage-based training. So you would calculate what lifts you were supposed to hit on a given workout on a given day, and they all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle to produce a small personal best, kind of around 2.5 kilo, 5 kilo personal best, maybe as many as 7.5 or 10 kilo if you do really well, but typically 2.5 or 5 kilo personal best in the various lifts at the end of the cycle. I think the cycle in that PDF was like a 12-weeker, so pretty standard stuff. Obviously, when you're working shifts, you feel constantly jet lagged, and you're also working irregular days. You can't stick to a consistent training schedule, and when you can train, rarely do you have sufficient energy to do so. Or some weeks you will have the energy, so some weeks you'll come off nights, say you've got a squat workout, you come off nights, you do a squat workout, and you're fine for some reason, you're just fine, you hit all the lifts. But then the next week, you might have to do it at the end of a day shift, and you're just not with it, and you end up missing the lifts. And as I said, these workouts are designed to fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. So if you miss a workout and you don't get the training stimulus, the odds of you hitting the PB at the end of the program start to go down. And you will not be surprised to hear that I did not hit the PBs. I actually couldn't finish the program. I tried to run it 3 or 4 times. Each time I just didn't fall off the wagon. I continued training, so I didn't fall off the wagon in terms of completely training, but I fell off the wagon with the program and had to reset it for various reasons. Either, for example, I just couldn't hit the gym. There was one instance of it I remember vividly. I actually had an absolutely torturous run of late shifts, so finishing in the small hours of the morning, and I just couldn't hit any of the weights that I was supposed to be hitting. So I thought, sod it, I'll just start again. So I was, say, week 5 for argument's sake. So I went back to week 1, try again. In the end, I just gave up. So all told, we're looking at maybe 3 or 4 months of. I wouldn't say the training is wasted, because no training is wasted. Any visit to the gym where you train with discipline and intent to the limits of your ability, circumstances, it's not wasted, but certainly didn't make any progress. Possibly went backwards, can't remember. Imagine I probably did. Then there was the other time where I was just very bored with the thing that I do that works, which I will get onto momentarily. Oh, look at me, proper YouTuber now, aren't I? Podcaster, leaving the good stuff till later into the episode. 1 million views, here we come. Anyway, the other time I just got bored, so I was ferreting around in the dark corners of the weightlifting internet, as I am wont to do, and I still do, although it's much harder these days to find these little independent blogs and things because of SEO content and things make it very difficult to find good independent source of information. But I found this guy who advocated this fascinating training paradigm that I have never seen anyone else talk about before or since, and the idea of quick gains in strength, and I could see and understand how it would work to produce gains in strength very quickly because of the nature of the way it was all set up. So I gave it a shot, and I did see some modest gains in strength very quickly, but because of the extremely demanding nature of the training, so we're talking 6 to 10 workouts per week, so sometimes 2 a days, really heavy lifting, kind of in the 80 to 90% of 1 rep max range for very low reps, but lots and lots of sets. I didn't hold on to any of the progress that I made. I also picked up, it re-aggravated the problem with my lower back and hamstring that I've talked about a lot before, so I won't go over that again, but it re-aggravated that old injury that I'd not long sorted out actually. So I re-aggravated that, and I also just felt rubbish all the time. I felt like I had the flu all the time because the training was so demanding. Now I can see how marvellous training in that way might be for someone who takes a lot of steroids, but for little old me, I think I was probably about 25 at the time, natural, not a gifted athlete and by any stretch of the imagination. It was just too much. So as I say, whilst I saw a modest bump in strength that lasted all of about a month and a half, I was able to hold on to that and very quickly back to my baseline, and actually a little bit below baseline in the deadlift specifically, but also the back squat as well, because of the re-aggravating of my lower back problem, which I then had to sort out. So again, no real progress of note for another 3 or 4 months, possibly even longer actually, plus all the time I had to spend rehabbing the lower back, which meant no progress in the lower body lifts for even longer. So just in these two examples, and there are more examples, but those are just the two that spring to mind. Excuse me, car. Just in those two examples I've given, we're looking at kind of 8 months of potentially progressive training squandered, plus maybe another 3 or 4 in the case of the latter, where I had to get my lower back working properly again. So, a year. Is that a year? I don't know. I've got Jess here to check my maths, but let's just say it's a year, just from those 2 examples, and as I say, there are more. So in my 14 and a half, 15 years of training, it's at least a year of them I've spent not training productively, because I refused to do the thing that I knew worked, because I'm an idiot, very stupid. So what is this thing that I am convinced is the best way for a natural trainee to train? It's very simple. It's good old-fashioned full body workouts. Oh, but Phil, full body workouts, they're for beginners though, aren't they? I need something more advanced, I'm an intermediate. Comes the inevitable objection. And yes, in many ways, full body workouts are for beginners. But they are perhaps the best way for a beginner. They're certainly the best way, I think, actually, for a beginner to get started with lifting weights, for a bunch of reasons that I won't go into now, because it's not the subject of what we're talking about today. Because actually talking to guys who've been lifting weights for a while, who've exhausted their beginner gains, who think that full body workouts are too advanced for full body workouts or whatever, that may be true. Certainly true if you're an athlete, powerlifter, bodybuilder, Olympic weightlifter, runner, whatever. Well, maybe runners possibly benefit from full body workouts. I'll have to talk to the individual runner, but there are indeed people for whom full body workouts aren't the best way to go. But for someone like me, and hopefully you if you're listening, and potentially you in the future if you're a beginner right now and you're listening, full body workouts are the way to go. Now, who do I define as someone like me? Well, someone who has, as I said, exhausted their beginner gains. So in training 6 months to a year or more, you're not really putting weight on every workout, kind of in the 1.25 range, body weight range squat, body weight bench, 0.75 body weight overhead press, kind of 1.5 to 1.75 times body weight deadlift. Yeah, those are the people that generally exhausted their beginner gains, and they start looking for something beyond full body training. And there will be people who get bigger numbers than that in their initial spurt, particularly if they start young, particularly if they have a good build for lifting weights, affinity for lifting weights, they'll probably do a bit better. But yeah, these are the people I'm talking to who think full body workouts are not for them. And it's my contention they're wrong. The issue is that you're not doing them right. So the full body workouts people immediately jump to are starting strength, strong as 5x5. Starting strength, written by the infamous legend that is Mark Ripito, who is, in my opinion, the finest mind in strength training of the 20th century. Which a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but that man has done more for getting people lifting weights in an efficient, effective way by building strength than anyone else I can think of. And my brain is very big, and my knowledge of this subject is labyrinthine. So he has a very famous program, Starting Strength. It's in a book actually, which you should definitely buy if you don't own it already. You can get like used copies for like £20. So every Rippertone is Starting Strength. He, as Strongless 5x5 is a variation of, it's very similar to Starting Strength. It differs in a few areas, but they're inconsequential in my opinion. If you're going to pick either one, well, Stronglist is free, but I'd buy Rippertone's book and do Starting Strength if you are a rank beginner. And obviously if it's appropriate, if you judge it appropriate for you. This program's very basic, but they don't pretend to be anything more than they are, which is a method to get you from not really training at all to respectably strong in the core lifts, so squat, bench press, deadlift, barbell row, overhead press. That's the purpose of these programs. And if that's all you do, you will very quickly, potentially in as little as 6 months, plateau, and then you'll have a lot of difficulty progressing any further if all you do is continue to hammer those lifts. And what we often see happen with those programs, particularly if you go on the internet and you read these idiots on forums, what they will do is they will stall on Starting Strength, and then they will deload either slightly, it'll take 10 kilos off whatever it is they're doing, 15 kilos off whatever it is they're doing, or they'll deload to the bar and start again. I remember when I was a student, and there's a forum called thestudentroom.co.uk, I believe it's still up, and there was a fitness section on this forum that I used to spend a lot of time on when I was at uni. And I kid you not, there were guys on that forum who had been doing Starting Strength for years, literally years. So they would start the program, ride up to okay-ish lifts I suppose, and then they would deload to the bar, deload a bit, and they do it again, they'd reach the same point, they deload to the bar, and this is all they would do, and they would all encourage each other in this, and you would see posts like, oh, my squat form was a bit wobbly, and you would get 3, 4, 5 guys going, oh, deload to the bar, and that's all they could do, which is very strange to me. This cycle of madness. There are still guys, I looked on this forum actually, must have been about a year ago now, I went back on it. Bearing in mind I went to university in 2010, and there were names, screen names I recognise, still lifting broadly what it was they were lifting all those years ago, and in one case still doing Starting Strength or strong lifts or close variation of it, which really did tickle my pickle. That's the wrong analogy. Made me laugh. I did laugh, actually. So yeah, using the full body program for what it was not, using a specific full body program in a way that's not intended is obviously not going to produce results. But that's where the argument comes from. That's where this idea that, oh, full body training is for beginners comes from, because we get people who try, once they're no longer beginners, once they become early intermediates, they continue to try and use a beginner full body training program to get results, then conclude wrongly that full body training does not work for intermediate trainees, which is not true. As I say, it's all about how you do it. And essentially, for the program to grow with you, you need to apply critical thinking and start considering, where are my weak points? So I'm a muscle and strength guy, muscle before strength. I'm big on strength training, but ultimately I'm of the opinion that every red-blooded heterosexual man is interested in going to the gym to look better first and foremost. The strength gains are awesome and they have amazing carryover for your life, and longevity, health, yada yada yada, being able to pick your kids up over your head, all that sort of good stuff. But really, we're there to build muscle. So what you do is you pick one of those basic full body programs, ride it up to the point that it stops, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, okay, let's look at myself honestly in the mirror. Where am I at? Where am I at with my physique? What looks good? What looks not so good? And this isn't necessarily an easy thing for a lot of guys to do. Be honest and objective about how it is they look, but do it you must if you're serious about continuing to progress. And typically, if we use starting strength as an example, a lot of guys, when they finish that, they've got great glutes, great hamstrings, good back, but they're typically quite slight in the shoulders and arms, and depending on your build, quads as well, because you think with all the squatting that's encouraged on starting strength, but the quads would grow a lot, and in some people they do. So someone like me who has freakishly short legs and a long torso, who as a result of that basically squats straight up and down, so I use a lot of quad in my squat. Yeah, my quads grow beautifully from basic barbell back squats. My leg training doesn't really need to be a hell of a lot more complicated than that, and when I have made it a little bit more complicated than that, my quads have actually grown out of proportion with the rest of my physique. So I do have to be a little bit mindful of that. Others, taller guys, particularly taller guys, generally won't get a huge amount of quad growth from basic barbell back squat because of the way that the bar moves and how the body moves the bar and so on. So I'm tired, it's Sunday morning, and I'll just make a hack job of explaining the biomechanics. But suffice it to say, taller guys generally not going to get as much quad growth from basic barbell back squats. Arms won't grow much because there isn't, off the top of my head, a tremendous amount of direct arm work done. And people say, oh well, all that rowing, for example, all that rowing will grow my arms. And it can do, but not as much as you would think. So it's commonly trotted out that people, in fact I had a guy actually who, I mentioned this on the last podcast, didn't I, who messaged me and said he got rid of the arm work in the program that's in the report that's on the screen, linked on the screen, fulltime.co.uk/report, how to build muscle and strength the natural way, which if you've not gotten read, I suggest you do. It's free. You have to sign up for my daily emails as well, but hey, they've got more information to help you learn as well. And if you find pushing delete very stressful, or the idea of me promoting my products and services to you on a daily basis offensive, you can always unsubscribe. In fact, please do. So anyway, yeah, people think this idea that I'm doing compound lifting, that's going to grow my arms. That's not always true. You do need direct arm work to grow your arms. It's just, it sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But the tendency of people in the fitness space to overcomplicate things, particularly to suit their own ideology and their own way that they think fitness should work, rather than how it actually works, has a pretty pronounced effect on people's attitudes and stuff. So your physique, anyway, will probably be somewhat lacking in the arm department, almost certainly. Potentially quads. Potentially chest as well as another one. So to use myself as an example, I'm very shoulder dominant in the way I bench press. I bench press with a very narrow grip. Not quite a close grip bench press, but certainly not the broad grip you see people generally take for a bench. And the reason for that's a very simple one. It's injury prevention. I find a narrower grip stresses my shoulder a lot less, and it's allowed me to bench week in, week out without fail for over a decade without any real issues, or no issues in the shoulders at all actually. So yeah, I bench press with a slightly narrow grip, but that has the downside of my chest being slightly less developed. So if you bench with a slightly narrow grip, that could be you as well. You know, you could come off the end of this beginner full body program with a slightly undeveloped chest. So anyway, you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Calves, that's the last one. Calves. Almost certainly your calves will be too small. So yeah, that's another box to check. So yes, you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, okay, where am I at? Right, I've got really good glute development, really good hamstring development, my shoulders looking okay actually, but my chest is a bit weak, my arms are a bit small. Fine. So you would just then apply critical thinking and think, well, what exercises could I do to bring those body parts up? And then you include them in your program. Yes? So instead of doing flat bench presses, say, you could start doing incline bench presses. If you want to bring up your quads, you could swap back squats for front squats. You might include a small amount of arm work, 2 or 3 sets of 10 bicep curls, rope push downs, whatever you want really, it doesn't matter as long as you do it. And that, over time, will bring up those lagging body parts. And the cool thing about this is, when you bring up, the body loves balance, right? So when you bring up these lagging body parts, what you will find is that your strength in the core lifts improves the next time you go at them. So, so say you swap out, as I say, you swap benches for incline presses and front squats, back squats for front squats, you're adding some arm work. When you then go back to attacking the back squat and the flat bench press, because you almost certainly will if you can do those lifts without pain, you always rotate back to them eventually. You might find that you feel more comfortable and secure in the movement, because you've built up muscle and strength in key movers, prime movers in those lifts. So the strength gains will almost likely won't be obvious immediately, so you will probably go back to doing a back squat. Let's say you finish a beginner full body program at, I don't know, 120 kilo for a set of 5 back squat. Let's just say that's where you wind up. So when you go back to it, you go back to the back squat 6 months, 8 months, 12 months later after you've been doing some front squats and some other things, what you might find is that you'll go back to it at maybe 100 kilos for sets of 5, but when you do those sets, they'll feel really nice. You'll probably be able to get a little bit more range of motion, because what you'll find when you do front squats, for example, is that it's much easier to drop all the way down into the hole, just because of the biomechanics of the lift. It's just easier to drop a little bit lower. And in some cases you kind of have to, otherwise you end up dumping the bar forwards. So you might find that you've got a bit more range of motion in your back squat. Well, that's going to help you build up muscle, because you're going to, in and of itself, because you're taking the muscles through a great range of motion, there's more stimulus there. But you'll also find that perhaps where you stumbled in the lifts before, you're not stumbling as much, and then you get back up to 120 for sets of 5, and it feels a hell of a lot better than the last time you did it. And then all of a sudden you're doing 125 for sets of 5, 130 for sets of 5, 135 for sets of 5, 140 for sets of 5, and then you stall again. Then you stall again and again. Go back, do the mirror test. Where am I lacking? Where am I doing well? Apply critical thinking, select some different lifts, attack those different lifts, and then the process will probably repeat itself. Now, of course, this can't go on forever, right? This cannot go on forever, because if it did, people would be able to do full body workouts and they'd end up with 1,000-pound squats and 1,000-pound deadlifts and 600-pound benches and things. So we're only a tiny fraction of steroid users ever achieve those things, right? So there will be a point where you're not going to get any stronger. But I dare say you'll be highly satisfied with the point eventually at which you top out. There's a lot of... I speak to a lot of guys who are genuinely struggling with what they think they should be able to do versus what they can actually do. Because of there's a runner going past, very very quick. It's a lady and she runs the route I'm walking now quite regularly, and yeah, she's obscenely quick. It's very cool. Anyway, yeah, they struggle with what they believe should be possible based on what they see on the internet and people tell them in the gym that's not true, versus what is actually possible for a natural guy who has a job and a family and a life outside of the gym. Yeah, because I don't advocate people become obsessed with training. I think it's deeply unhealthy and pretty sad way to live, actually, when your entire identity revolves around lifting weights. Like, really? Got nothing else going on better? It's just like picking up heavy shit. It's not particularly exciting, but hey, some people end up that way, and I strongly advise you don't end up like that. But you will be quite happy with what you get. Yeah, what is actually possible, right? So, yeah, if I was to say to you, 1.75 times body weight to 2 times body weight back squat, 1.25 to 1.5 times body weight bench, body weight overhead press, double body weight to double body weight, 0.25, double body weight and a half deadlift, depending on your biomechanics. It's much more. I find there's much more variance with the deadlift, what people are able to do. Because some people like me are just genetically bad deadlifters, or they pick up an injury very early on in training, that usually deadlifting, and that kind of puts a ceiling on it. But anyway, the point is double body weight or double body weight and a half deadlift. Who wouldn't be happy with that? Like, who wouldn't be happy with those numbers? And if you've got those numbers, you're gonna be big, you're gonna be muscular, you're gonna look good. And the cool thing about using a body weight, rather than looking for specific numbers like 200 kilo squat, right, using it as a percentage of body weight, is that, or a multiple of body weight rather. You can imagine hear Jess seething in the background at me using the wrong mathematical words. Yeah, people. The cool thing about using a multiple of body weight is that it stops you from getting fat as well, right? Because if you're fat, like really fat, like 100, say you're my height, 5'7", around 100 kilos, that's fat. I don't care. Unless you're taking gallons of juice, you're fat. And even if you're taking gallons of juice, you're often fat. Well, in that case, a 160 kilo back squat, not particularly impressive, is it? Yeah? But, or 150 kilo back squat, not particularly impressive. But if you're like a 75 kilo guy or an 80 kilo guy and you've got a 150 back squat, all of a sudden, that's pretty respectable, right? So by looking at your weights as a percentage of, a multiple of your body weight, rather than shooting for specific, rather than assessing them based on specific numbers, is a much healthier way of doing things, because it does force you to do your cardio, eat sensibly, and maintain health. Yeah, I'll close on this actually, because it's a funny story. It's relevant. I was doing some prospecting on LinkedIn, so sending strangers messages to let them know about my free report, because I'm a shameless salesperson who wants, a terrible man who wants to provide for his family by selling useful information about fitness. Anyway, I stumbled across a guy, and he said, well, I'm not interested because I'm in the 1,000 pound club. Now, if you're not familiar, the 1,000 pound club is a powerlifting thing. So it's defined as you being able to hit a total of 1,000 pounds across the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. And usually this will be a 180 kilo squat, 180 kilo deadlift, and around a 90 kilo bench. I'm not familiar on what 200 pounds is in kilos. I think it's around 90, because I know 220 is 100 kilos. So yes, 400 pound squat, 400 pound deadlift, 200 pound bench press. And there's usually most of that's made up by the deadlift. So you'll end up with a 440 deadlift, so like a 200 kilo deadlift, or 210 deadlift. Something like that, because most guys are sort of stronger, so the squat's lower. Squat's kind of around the 150, 160 mark, and the bench usually is around 90. Because this is like the first milestone if you want to be a powerlifter. It's like the first thing you want to hit, first target, 1,000 pound club. Now, this guy made me chuckle, because if his picture was anything to go by, he's quite a rotund fellow. So if you're someone who's 70 kilo, 70 to 80 kilos, 60 even, hitting the 1,000 pound club, like that's nod head respectable. That's pretty cool. When you're a fatter guy, as many aspiring powerlifters tend to be fat, because a lot of people gravitate towards powerlifting because they're too lazy and greedy to diet properly and train hard. Because powerlifting training is not particularly demanding. There's a lot of thinking involved, and a lot of programming and other things, but the actual execution of the workouts, they're a lot. You get nice long rest periods between sets. It's not, the skill ceiling's really low as well. It's not particularly hard to become pretty competent at the 3 lifts. So people who are lazy and greedy tend to gravitate towards powerlifting, so you get kind of fat guys doing it. So he's benched at the saying he's got the 1,000 pound mark. So I went on to ask, I said, okay, so you've got nothing else to learn then, I take it? And he says, nah mate, I'm actually a qualified PT. So it's quite interesting. I asked him why he doesn't do PT full time. He didn't reply, but I come across a lot of qualified PTs in my travels. Don't work as PTs, and they say it as if it's something that's impressive. It's not. My PT course, it was 5 weeks I think, but the actual PT component was 4, and there was some multi-guess exams that were, the hardest one was the human biology one, anatomy and physiology, but that was only barely hard, about as difficult as my GCSE biology was, and it was multiple choice as well, so and a practical assessment that you can't fail unless you lick the volunteer client that you've got, or throw a dumbbell at them or something. So again, there's no real, just an example of arrogance, I suppose, and perhaps the sort of person who would turn around and say that my advocating for full body training as the most efficient and effective way for the natural trainee to get results reliably and somewhat predictably as being wrong. But I don't believe it's wrong. That's all I have to say. I don't really know why I told that story at the end, actually. It's not especially relevant, but actually no, I suppose it is relevant. Here's how it's relevant, actually. It's relevant because you will encounter these people in your travels who will say something about their achievements that's superficially impressive. So like Mr. £1,000 Club guy, yeah, he said, oh, I can do £1,000. Well, that sounds like a lot, doesn't it, right? But actually when you break it down, it's not. And you're going to encounter these people, and these people the ones that work in the industry have a vested interest in making things seem more complicated than they are, right? And the reason for that is they don't believe they can sell the truth, right? That's what my opinion is. They don't believe they can sell the truth. So something that you'll hear a lot of PTs say is that like nobody buys, you just train hard using compound movements, consistently for a long time and eat properly. They don't believe people will buy that, and to be fair, a lot of people won't buy that. So instead, what they do is they tend to complicate things to make it seem like there's more to it than there actually is, so that you buy their information products and you buy their coaching. I won't do that. Like, the stuff that I have to teach you is really basic, really boring, but I use it, and I'm doing pretty damn well. My wife uses it; she's doing pretty damn well. My clients use it; they're doing pretty damn well. It works. It's basic because it works. It's proven. I don't indulge or engage in this pontificating about training that they do. The other thing is that a lot of people who are very into fitness and they work as PTs and stuff are not particularly bright. As I said to you, it's not particularly difficult to get qualified as a PT, so they're not very bright. They also tend to have been sporty their whole lives. The stereotypical sporty lad at school who doesn't do particularly well academically, so he goes on and goes to college, gets a certificate in personal training, and that's his job. He becomes a personal trainer. So there's that. As a result, they don't really understand the struggles of the person who doesn't really care all that much about sport or fitness, and they don't understand why someone wouldn't want to spend their every waking moment thinking about health and fitness, consuming health and fitness content on social media and stuff like that. So there's that. And then the final thing is because they're not very bright, and because they don't understand that people aren't actually necessarily interested in consuming, spending their every waking moment thinking about fitness and thinking about the gym and stuff and building their life that rolls around it, they push all this overcomplicated stuff to people that don't need it. So I'm not going to sit here and, I said this earlier, didn't I? I'm not going to pretend for a moment that athletes would be fine doing broadly what I've described in this podcast. Of course they bloody wouldn't. They need far more specific and detailed training than that to get the results that they need. But Joe Normie, he'd probably be fine. But talking about all this advanced stuff, it does make them feel smart. So that's another reason why they do it. So I'll close by saying, just be careful who you listen to, who you take your advice from, because it's not just steroid users that you need to be careful of. It's also people who know a little bit about training and might have achieved something that superficially seems somewhat impressive, who kind of throws a spanner in the works with your training by recommending you do things that you ostensibly don't need to do. So there we are. That'll do for today. In the meantime, if you're still listening, which I'd be very impressed if you are, please go and get my report, How to Build Muscle and Strength the Natural Way. It does explain full body training in enough detail for you to get moving in the right direction. Certainly it's free, so it's obviously not as detailed as the stuff I give my clients who pay me money and my customers and my books and stuff, because that'd be kicking them in the teeth, wouldn't it? You have to sign up to my daily emails to get it. So if the idea of having an email a day, and sometimes more than one email a day, like today, I'm launching a new book, The Weight Loss Manifesto. It's the last day of the pre-order window, so I'm sending 4 emails. So if that sort of thing offends you, like don't get the report, or just unsubscribe from the emails, you know, that'll be fine. And the other thing I was going to say to do as well is like the video if you like the video, and subscribe if you want to help me out a little bit on the whole YouTube front, or don't. Again, I won't be offended either way. Signing off for another Sunday.